Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Newton from the Krannert School of Management, joined today by Brad Strock. He is the Chief Information Officer at PayPal, a two-time Purdue graduate. Welcome back to campus.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, Tim.
Let's start at the beginning, Brad. What brought you here first for an engineering degree?
Well, I was born and raised in Indiana. I wanted to be a nuclear engineer, and so actually it was a pretty easy choice at that time. Purdue had a great engineering program, and so I came and started in nuclear engineering and then changed to mechanical engineering and graduated in 1986 with undergrad.
Now, you decided to supplement your engineering background with a management background. You got a master's degree from here. What made you choose that?
So I think I co-opted in the engineering program, which was a great experience and helped me understand one, that I wanted to change majors as an undergrad, and two, that I really wanted to learn more about business. And so I wanted to be able to take the engineering degree and the technical learning and learning about how to decompose problems and how to think and solve problems, and then be able to expand that into the business realm. So I applied to a number of different schools and decided, because I had worked the equivalent of a couple years, I was going to stay and get my, it's an MSM at the time. And so that's what I did.
And we're happy you did.
I'm very pleased as well.
You had a number of roles in the banking industry before you started your current role at PayPal. How did those prepare you for what you do now?
So my whole career has been kind of interesting. A lot of folks in technology start in technology and then kind of migrate to more business roles. I actually did the opposite. So I started working at manufacturing companies that led to getting into banking, which was also kind of an interesting change. It was kind of a happenstance that happened. And as I spent about 10 years in different banking organizations, and during that time really kind of gravitated more and more to technology roles. And so it was a great learning from the standpoint of how large organizations, how financial services works. And then also being able to do more and more and eventually moving into a formal technology role.
I think people have a pretty good idea of what PayPal does, but when you're asked what your business does, what is PayPal?
So PayPal is we are really a platform for enabling commerce. So we're a fintech company, we're financial services, but we think of ourselves in our technology company. We've really got two primary customer bases. So one is consumers. We enable commerce, person-to-person payments, and enabling purchases. The other group is merchants. So we help merchants, whether they're large or small, whether they're traditional or a company like Uber, to process payments, and more than process payments, to be a platform for them to be successful in what is for many a very difficult business, which is retail commerce. So having these two groups, consumers, where we want to be more relevant into consumers' lives and being able to help them use their money and do that efficiently, and with merchants, where we want to be a ubiquitous platform to enable commerce. So that's what we're about, and we want to change the world in how people think and use money, and how merchants are successful in doing commerce.
I think it's been said that the only constant in technology is change. How do you stay ahead of the curve?
So it's certainly difficult. You know, the confluence of Moore's Law with the exponential shrinking of computing power, and not only in size but in expense, coupled with the internet, so the ubiquitous standard-based network that we're all plugged into, has led to incredible disruptions. It started with departments in companies, became disrupting companies, and now technology is disrupting almost every industry. So staying ahead of that is challenging. So it means you have to be extremely nimble. You have to be able to anticipate what's a real trend and what isn't. Where do you make your investments? Ultimately, we strive to be very technology agnostic. So we want to be able to support NFC, Bluetooth, standard web, the mobile devices. We're not so much about the technology as being able to build a platform for those consumers and merchants. So that means we do have to try to anticipate how the market's going to go. Sometimes you do that successfully and sometimes not. So in the end, the ability to be very quick and agile and adapt our product to customer needs is really the key to success.
So PayPal spun off of eBay, correct? How did your background help you help with that transition, both your engineering and your management background?
Yeah, so that was probably the most challenging thing that we as a company and I personally have ever been involved in. It happened very quickly. Walked into work one day and found out
We're leaving.
We're splitting. After we said we weren't, and as those things sometimes happen. So we had less than 9 months to do that. A lot of the heavy lifting was in what we would call the corporate IT space, of the internal applications. So just the scale of it, we had about 30,000 users that had to be migrated. We had to stand up a new corporate network for PayPal, build 2 new data centers, build a global network of 66 locations, connect them all up, be able to have everybody work together, but then not be able to work together. And it was the most challenging thing that I've ever done. And in a merger, you have the opportunity to do the deal and then you figure out how you're going to combine. In the split, a tax-free split, you actually have to demonstrate you split the company before you can do the deal. So now all of a sudden the IT work is on the critical path of being able to do the split. So that's a lot of pressure. And but the team, we took a relatively small team, dedicated them to the task, and then did some simple things that I think were in hindsight very helpful. So being able to measure outcomes and have that visibility day to day. Every day we'd walk in and say, well, how many locations did we light up last night? How many more are left to do? How much time do we have? So keeping everybody focused on the fact that literally we have so many days to complete this. So that was a key learning. Another was the importance of giving the team some air cover, because we were doing, all our outside counsel consultants said that this was going to be a two-year project, maybe 18 months if you're aggressive. We had half that time. So we were doing things that really hadn't been done before. And we took the time to go to every senior leader in the company and say, this is what we're up against. We've got 1,000 applications we have to split. We're building 2 new data centers. We're doing this and that. Scared people a little bit, but everyone said, how can we help? And the one consistent answer we had was, we're going to break some things along the way. We'll fix them quickly, but give the team some grace so that we can take some risks that we need to take. And that actually was extremely helpful. Because as technologists, we don't like to break things. We want things to work all the time. So when they don't, we expect folks are not going to be too happy about that. And so we got some grace around being able to do things that we had to do to get the job done on time. And ultimately, we got done 2 weeks early, and we didn't break the company, which was a risk. And we were able to do the separation on time.
One of the things that technology does is it helps shrink the world, which is good because you have people that work with you and for you all over the world.
We do.
How do you manage in such a globally diverse environment?
Yeah. So you have to, we do have teams all over the globe. There are some practical things that you have to do, which is recognize there are 24 time zones in the world. And the center of the universe is not where you are at the moment. And so we do some practical things like when we have all hands, I have 2 or 3 different ones so we can accommodate. We don't make people get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to participate. So that means we all have to share in the burden of, I'm going to do a call at 1 o'clock in the morning because that's when it's work hours on the other side of the globe. So simple things like that. And then also recognizing that to be really successful, we want our global teams to have ownership, real ownership, end-to-end ownership of applications or processes. A lot of times, what I've seen in global companies is the groups on the other side of the world might tend to get the less desirable work, or just pieces of work without the context. So we've been very deliberate to try to give all our teams the opportunity to own and have end-to-end ownership of something. And then as they build expertise and demonstrate that capability, then we'll add to their plate. And that's actually been very, very successful for us. And I think the third thing is I make an explicit effort to get to each of our locations once or twice a year and meet with the team and understand what's going on and what their challenges are. So even though we operate a lot virtually, it's still important to have that face-to-face interaction so that we have the relationships there that we can depend on than when we are just on the phone or on a video conference.
All right, lastly, what's your message for students today?
So I'm going to talk today a little bit about my experiences and lessons learned. I'd say, one thing as I reflect on what was high tech when I was here as a student, seems very archaic today. And so I think what the students today take for granted as high technology, if you 10, 20, 30 years from now, is going to look archaic. So the key is, yes, it's important to have technical knowledge of how things operate today, but the most important learning that you're going to get, whether it's Grandard or any other school, is how to think about things, how to solve problems, how to learn how to get up the curve quickly on technology, because whatever's current today is actually going to start to be obsolete tomorrow, and that's an exponential function. So you really need to take advantage of all the opportunities that Grandard and Purdue offers around teaching you how to think. That's one of the most important lessons, I think.
Welcome back.
My pleasure, thank you.
I know it's been a while. Be careful when you're walking around today. Some of the street patterns have changed. You need to look both ways now before you cross the street.
Yes, I'm trying to be careful.
All right, for Brad Strock, I'm Tim Newton.